Hey, welcome to Game Dev Weekly. I'm back working on Hydroneer again. Hydroneer is a mining game where you dig for gold and other resources to build massive mining machines. And this week I'm going to be working towards the 0.7 update with a few new features. If you want to check out Hydroneer and play it yourself, then head over to the Patreon link below. For a minimum of $2, you can jump straight into the latest update. I'm going to show you a few things I've been working on this week. So I'm going to start off this week by showing you a brand new item. This is the crystal. It's used to power these kind of pressure tanks in the game that I'll be adding into the game just later on this week. They're a rare resource that you get, like you get gems and ore from digging in the ground. It's a way that players can progress through the game, which isn't just limited to having money. You've actually got to find these items and use them efficiently. I'll go in a bit more into this later on in the week when I show you the new system that I've made. Something else that I've done, which is kind of to do with the same system, is when you hold down E, which is the pick up and drop button, you can start to move the item around and free place it. This is really useful for kind of like building and decorating, especially when it comes to placing lanterns somewhere. So it's been a few days since the last clip. So what I've been doing is revamping the way the water system works and adding in water pressure. So it's not necessarily about the amount of water that's coming through, it's about how fast that water is coming through. And before adding anything else, I needed a way to actually represent this so the player can see what the water pressure is. So I added these pipe items, which are basically just water gauges. So you can see the water pressure is coming in pretty low right now. By the time it reaches the end of this pipe, it is pretty much zero. The water will still come off at the same pace, as you can see here. The way the system will work is when the water goes into an object like, I don't know, the harvester or maybe some sort of drill, the pressure of the water will be the speed that the machine works at. I think there's a few tweaks I need to make, maybe like raising the pressure that comes out from the start, as well as looking at how much water pressure is lost through these pipes. So now we can read pressure. I've added in a new item, which is the pressure tank. And this is powered by those shards that I showed you earlier. So you click it to open the door. You can use the new free dropping functionality to place that in there. Then when I close the door, that'll boost the pressure inside the chain. And then this pressure gauge will read a bit higher than this one down here. You can combine multiple of these in one chain, so then you can get higher pressure. And then basically the machines will work faster. There's a lot of functionality that I have to think about when making this, like for instance what happens when the door is open. And what this is it basically acts as a valve, so you can see there's no water coming out of here. Also, what happens if there's no shard inside there? Well, it just acts as a normal water pipe, so it conveys water like normal. When you put a shard into the tank, there's this material around the outside that glows. So it's kind of like a rubber seal. I'll open that up and place it inside. You can see it strobes like it does with the material. Kind of goes brighter and then darker again. Here's a material blueprint which basically controls the textures on the actual model. This outputs a material and then I apply that to the mesh. It's made up of various images that control how the material looks, and I'm going to explain a little bit about it. Right here you got base color, which is basically the raw color data that kind of goes onto the model. Then you've got the ambient occlusion, the roughness and the metallic values, so kind of how shiny it is, how the lighting affects it. Then we've got the normals, which is kind of like the 3D effects. But what I'm doing here is something a little bit different, and I'm playing around with the emissive color. What I basically am doing, I'm switching between this texture right here, which is kind of just completely black image, and that, when plugged into the emissive, gives it a 0 value, so then you don't see any of the glowiness. And then down here, I'm using some mathematical equations to make the brightness kind of throb, to make the glowiness throb like you see with the shard crystal. And what this thing here is, it's called a lerp, and basically it switches between A and B using an alpha. So best way to explain this is if this is 0, then it will use the A channel, and if this is 1, it'll use the B channel. But what's great about a lerp is you can go from 0 to 1, and you can do, you know, like 0.23, and it'll be a little bit less than a quarter of the way there. So what's going on down here is the throbbing. So what we're using right here is just time, and then what we're doing is we're multiplying it by 0.2 so we can reduce the seconds that are going into it and make it a little bit slower. Then we're using a sine wave. This is basically just a line that kind of goes up and down on a graph. We're clamping it so we got a minimum of 0.2. So that means it's the lower limit. I didn't want it to go completely black while it's throbbing. And then we've got this right here, which is just a texture sample of the emissive. I can even show you it. It is pretty much just the glowing parts. Looks a bit strange here, but this is basically just the UV map, so it shows how it's actually applied to the model in a flat two-dimensional texture. This is just another LERP, so you know it's going from 0 to 1 with this input right here. So obviously we're going from 0.2 to 1, depending on where it is in this time. And we're saying when it's at 0, then it needs to be only a tiny bit bright. And then when it's at 1, it needs to be very bright, so it's multiplied by 5. So the way that the code interacts with this is if the door is opened, then the light will turn off, so this number becomes 0. And when the door is closed and there's a crystal inside of it, then this number becomes 1, and then it uses this bottom channel down here. So that's just a quick basic explanation of how the material works. That's going to do it for this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. This video has basically just been about these pressure systems and stuff that I'm going to be putting into the next update, the 0.7 update. There's a few more things that I want to put into it though, and I'll be covering that next week. This week has been really busy. I've been doing quite a lot of behind the scenes bug fixing, but I'm really excited about the next patch. I got some really cool stuff that I'm going to be putting into it. If you want to check out Hydroneer, then head over to the Patreon linked below. For a minimum of $2, you can check out the game and get all of the latest updates. If you are one of my patrons, I want to say thank you. I'm almost at 40 patrons now, and I'm getting some really good feedback from everyone, so thank you very much for your kind words. If you're not sure about picking up Hydroneer and you want to ask someone what it's like, head over to our Discord. The link is in the description below, and you can have a chat with some people over there. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.